What's up, everyone? This is James Patrick from Slam Academy, Ableton Certified Training Center, and I'm going to take a few minutes to show you the 3 most essential Ableton Live compressor techniques that you need to know. Let's go. So let's take a listen to the compression scheme I've got on my drum bus over here. So I go to my drums group. I'll solo those drums quick, hit the letter S. And now let's listen to the drum beat by itself. I'm going to turn those compressors off by holding Shift and selecting them all and then hitting 0 to turn them off. And let's listen to what the drum beat sounded like before. So the 3 compressor techniques that I think are absolutely essential for making your drums bang go like this. First, you need a peaking compressor, and that's going to mostly deal with the 2 main compressor parameters. The threshold, which pushes the peaks down, and then the ratio, which decides by how much. This is, of course, in decibels, so here we go. I bring this down till I start hitting those peaks. Notice I'm in peak mode. This is going to allow me to just trim off those peaks by a certain amount of dB. So every decibel that goes over the top of my threshold gets pushed down by that much. So if 4 go over, I get 1 left. This is basic compression. If I click to this third view, I'll be able to see how much gain reduction I'm evoking. In other words, how much I'm pushing down the peaks. That's called peaking compression. Generally, that's early in the signal flow path. If you want to glue things together a little better, I used to call this the glue compressor setting before the glue compressor became an actual device. So to demonstrate what RMS mode does, this mode you'll notice I have an RMS, and this is going to be triggered based on the volume of the average incoming signal. So that's the brighter green lower volume amount. Again, being able to click here and see how much gain reduction I'm evoking. This is working a little more, I don't know, slowly almost, in the sense that it's only compressing when the average level gets over the threshold. So this sometimes will have a little slower of a setting too on the timing, but for the most part, these are approximate standard average compressor settings. And with the RMS, you can adjust ratio to taste. That's, again, only letting 1 dB pass the threshold for every 5 that go over it. So those peaking and RMS settings, that's kind of a pair that work well together. I might shift-click on those 2, and let's call that one bus compressor. And this is going to be a standard combo that's going to get you better results than one compressor working too hard. So that's the first of my tricks. The next one is the adds punch setting. The adds punch is based on the similar to the peaking settings that we had before, but you're going to slow the attack way down. So watch, I'll dial this one in here to taste by pulling that threshold up, turning it on. So you can see I'm barely hitting it at all. I'll bring this down to where it starts slamming those peaks, and then I'll slow the attack down to taste. I usually find somewhere around a half of a second, somewhere between 5 and 600 or 700 milliseconds is a good setting for this, depending on what kind of drum beat you're working with. And the more slow, or the slower you make that attack, the more you'll be able to pull that threshold down further and further. I've seen people run this thing at a full second and have the threshold really low for mega pop. You got to watch out. As soon as you start doing this, you start hitting the reds possibly, because it's adding so much gain back. It's an easy way to visualize this. You can just pull this down and make sure you're not in the reds. Perfect. So that's a peaking mode with a really slow attack. I'll usually twiddle this around to taste. I rarely go all the way up to a full second. And again, the faster I make this, the more I'm going to want to let it breathe. Go somewhere in the middle there. Use my arrows and shift arrows to fine-tune that setting. That's going to optimize the amount of punch. So what's happening there, just so you know, is for 800 milliseconds, the compressor is not acting. and then it starts turning on its ratio. So there's this initial almost entire second of the sound that can pass before the compressor really grabs on, and that's going to allow the natural transients to pass by. In other words, preserving the natural attack and punch of the sound while only compressing the quieter parts. It's kind of an old school analog setting. I'm going to call it adds punch, and that's the second of my 3 techniques. The third technique is called soft clipping, and this is a really easy one to evoke. Just simply grab a glue compressor and throw it on a track. I'll power mine up, and it's going to look like this when you first load it up. Pretty simple. You might even have the attack up and down. Usually for this soft clip setting, you want a pretty fast attack. And you could pull the threshold down if you wanted to push those peaks down a little. This is your gain reduction meter, and now we're able to say how much are we pushing down. And a general rule of thumb is you want the compressor to be able to let go or fully release in between the big hits. So I'm listening in between my kicks and my snares and making sure that that can bounce all the way back down to 0. I'll do it wrong just to give you an idea. So it's never making it back down to 0. That's too low of a threshold. A way to work with that is to increase the release time a little bit. And even then, it's still almost making it. So that's pretty rough. So that's, I usually shoot for more of 3 or 4 dB of gain reduction there, if any at all. And there's where the magic happens with the soft clip switch and the makeup gain. This is usually the last thing in your chain, and this allows you to now re-add any remaining decibels and push that RMS, or the average volume of your drum track, up a bunch. The nice thing about the soft clip is that the harder you hit it, it's still never going to go in the reds. You're just adding coloration and warmth to the loudest parts of the sound. And Ableton gives you this nice handy clipping light that's letting you know yellow flickers as you're adding some distortion to the loud parts of the sound, and it'll actually go solid yellow and you're completely trashing the signal. So I usually recommend at this stage just a soft little flicker will be just right. If you do decide that you want to go to town on this because you're just feeling crazy, you can slam the shit out of that, and you can just pull the dry wet mix back to taste, and then it'll actually let the clean signal pass on through, and you'll just be mixing in the gnarly bits. This is kind of yet another technique. We could call this parallel soft clipping, or in other words, New York compression is an old school nerdy way to say it. See, with this setting now we're preserving the original punch and attack while still adding tons of grit. I really like that. You know, this is still nice, but we'd need to tame this. So it's 2 different ways to rock a similar setting, but they both are going to yield subtly different results. And when it comes to making things slap, I've got 4 compressors on my drum kit, and it might seem a little unorthodox, but if you're making electronic music that you want to really well slap, you're going to need to play around with these compressor settings, especially on more natural and organic drum sounds. You know, some drum machine sounds might not need all this, but generally if I'm going for mega blast, I'm going to want that. Let's bring this thing in over here and see what it sounds like in the mix. So this has been James Patrick, and I'm at Slam Academy at Ableton Certified Training Center, and this is one of many tutorial videos we upload to our YouTube channel for more concise and simplified information about how to make your electronic music sound rad. Hit us up, slamacademy.com, or just visit our YouTube channel. All the best.
Discover your own sound at America's leading digital audio academy, Slam Academy. An Ableton certified training center, Slam offers in-depth courses in sound design, mixing and mastering, DJing, and more in Minneapolis, Denver, and online. Only at www.slamacademy.com.